Bob Mackie, welcome to Bullseye. I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Bob, you have been both a fashion designer, runway fashion designer, and a costume designer.
Right.
What's the difference between those jobs?
Huge difference. I mean, one you're designing for a character that's probably written in a script, and you want that audience to sort of know who that person is when they walk on stage or on camera. And it can really help the writer and the actor if his costume is perfect. Where the other is just for anyone who just sort of likes it and wants to spend the money. It's just a whole different thing.
I mean, I think there are people who design runway fashion who say they're like telling a story, expressing conceptual.
No, they're not. They're just making a cute frock and hope somebody buys it.
It seems like your sympathies here lie on the side of costume design.
Well, it does, because that's what I always wanted to be. I never interested me. I never looked in a fashion magazine when I was a kid, but I looked in all the movie magazines and theater magazines and all of that. That was more interesting to me.
What's a dress or an outfit that you remember from your childhood?
That's hard. Well, actually, there was one. I've forgotten the name of the movie, but I'll tell you, it was Gene Kelly and Katherine Grayson and Dean Stockwell playing a child, and he was the son of a sailor. So Dean Stockwell, who was about my age at the time, although I think he was playing younger than he was, he wore the best sailor suits I've ever seen in my life, and I wanted them so badly, but there was just no way. It was all made in the studio, workrooms and stuff. And I was really young.
How old are we talking about?
Well, we're probably talking about 6, 7, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I could have been. I don't think I was younger. I think that's about where I was.
I feel like sailor suit is the classic thing that parents want to put on their children that children don't want to wear.
I always wanted a sailor suit because I thought if I have to ever go in the service, it's the only one I'm going to look right in. I just oh no. And all my uncles were, army suits and stuff. And I went, oh no, I don't want to be them. What are you going to say? It's in your head.
When did you get interested in making a dress, in that specific idea of a glamorous gown?
I was never interested in making a dress. I was interested in drawing something interesting. And I sometimes would make like my own paper doll, and then I would make a paper doll dress that had those little things that go over the shoulders.
Or tabs? Yeah,
tabs. And those were my stars in my shows that I put on. And the Jack Cole, the famous choreographer from the movies in the 50s, had a definite style. And so all of a sudden I had the same style, big numbers that happened in bar rooms in New Orleans or somewhere in the South, it's what he loved to do. And he did all of Marilyn's stuff at that time. And Gwen Verdon was his assistant choreographer who could do everything. And she became a huge Broadway star from being in those movies. She was always featured.
Did you want to be a commercial artist or a fine artist, or did you already know that you were going to be?
I would have been a commercial artist or a costume designer. That was it. Or a set designer. I'm sorry that I didn't take that further because I would be making more money today.
Is that where the money is?
More than costume design, yeah.
How did you get your first job?
I took my portfolio in and got it the first day when I went to Paramount. And the guy was doing a movie in the south of France, and he needed somebody to do his sketches for only the men. It was Glenn Ford and Charles Boyer. That's a good combination. And usually young fashion or costume designers only draw girls with dresses on. And I kind of was almost there. And they said, "Can you draw men?" And I said, "Yes." I wasn't sure I could really pull it off, but I did it beautifully. I could do it. I could look at a photograph and make it happen. And then he hired me later, and it happened to be at Paramount, and Edith Head was working there, and she'd wander in to see what her guests were doing. They were just renting the space. And she would look at every day what I was doing. And she says, "Do you think you could do strippers?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I could." Because I had been working at a department store in downtown LA, and there was a big strip palace, burlesque house, right near the bus station where I had to take the bus to get home to where I lived. And one day I was in high school already, and I said, "I'm just going to see if they'll let me in." It was a real quiet afternoon, Saturday afternoon, and I got in. And the next weekend, I had all my friends from school, from Pasadena City College, and we all went down to the burlesque house, girls and boys, and all of us in the art department. And we knew what naked ladies look like. It was funny, but we just thought it was funny, so it was okay.
What was the job that you were getting from knowing how to do strippers?
Well, there was a Paul Newman movie made. It was supposed to be in Paris, and they were in a strip club. It was that big flop of a movie. He and his wife, Joan Woodward, were in it. And what's her name? The funny lady from All About Eve. Can't remember her name. Thelma Ritter. And I thought, oh, Thelma Ritter is funny. I'll like this movie. Because I'd seen All About Eve, and she's good in that. I think she got an Oscar or at least nomination.
One of the clients who come up in the movie about you is Tina Turner.
Yes.
And I don't think you could find, I mean, first of all, Tina Turner is one of my favorite performers of any kind ever.
Why not?
But like, I also don't think you could find a more distinctive form, manner of performance. Like putting a costume on Tina Turner is a really specific task.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't easy, but yet she kind of knew what she wanted, but didn't.
I mean, she's so athletic. Like as a performer, like such a dynamic
Well, when
mover.
you can see the muscles in the arms and the legs and and you just go, wow, look at that body on her. And she, the last show I did with her, she'd lost a lot of that kind of toned thing, but she was still incredible and funny and lovely and tell stories that just make you laugh and laugh.
It started with her bringing you cheap dresses from Paris and having you chop them into pieces.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. She would buy these dresses. She'd go shopping for the girls that worked with her, the Ikettes, and buy stuff for them. And half the time they didn't really fit them right. And things that she would get from couture designers in Paris and Italy very often didn't really fit her properly, but she was getting them for nothing, and she was thrilled. You're getting free couture clothes because they all just would go see her and love her. I mean, I always say there are people that the minute they came out of the womb, they were singing and dancing and telling jokes. They're just those kind of people in life, and they know what to do with that audience. They get it completely.
I mean, when you take a dress that, you bought at a boutique in Paris and cut the skirt into strings.
Yes.
It is a way of both expressing the kind of intensity of her performance and of highlighting parts of her body that are in full action when she's performing, which, her legs were the most famous thing about her, right?
Well, they were long. She was a bit short-waisted And so the legs were long, but the body was kind of short. And she had a high butt in the back. And nothing's better. When they're good, they're really good.
And so when you cut that skirt into strings, like you are allowing for her to get her legs up in the air in a way that she couldn't if it weren't in strings. And it is like it's like a frame for those legs. Like it's where the action is.
But you have to think of those things. You have to think about what are the good places. We got to show those off for sure. And she's the one that saw a dress that I did for Raquel Welch, who wanted a dress that kind of was a little bit Tina Turner looking and like a cave woman. And she says, could you do that? I said, yeah, of course I can. I'll do it. And she went off. She was all over the world doing her act. And she was on the cover of L'Express in Paris. And Tina Turner saw it on the street and called me and said, I just saw this magazine. There is the best dress I've ever seen. And it was a tribute to Tina Turner, but she didn't know that. And when she found out that Raquel Welch wanted to look like her, the woman was the happiest woman I've ever known. She was so thrilled. And so was Raquel Welch, the fact that Tina liked her dress, because it really was like something she could wear.
When you're making costumes for comedy, which you made a huge amount of for the Carol Burnett show,
right,
over more than a decade.
It happened that our star happened to be just plain brilliant. She could make you laugh without trying very hard. Just amazing.
A total genius, and also very notably beautiful for someone that is that funny.
She's just amazing.
But like when you are making a costume for something that is funny, sometimes the costume is funny, right? Sometimes you get to make the famous drapery dress from the Gone with the Wind parody, where it's, someone wearing a dress with a curtain rod.
Well, in the movie, it was funny.
Yeah.
What happened was funny. You couldn't, because the next time you see her, she's in the most perfectly made movie outfit ever. Everything is perfect. And that's not true in life at all.
So in the parody, she just shows up literally wearing the drapes. So sometimes the costume is the funny thing. But
But you have to have an actress or an actor that just pulls it off. Just does just the wrong thing. Just enough. Too much is too much. It's you just have to know.
Does that also apply to the outfits?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It just does.
What's a costume that was particularly challenging on Carol Burnett?
Well, that particular one was because the original gag in the movie, the real Gone with the Wind movie, was it looked terrible. You knew it was going to look terrible, but the idea was funny, and it continued to be funny.
Did you ever put something on screen that you thought was too much? It distracted from the comedy?
Sometimes, not too often, but sometimes. You just have to kind of know how much you can get away with and still have a laugh. And sometimes you don't have to do very much, because they're just a little this or a little that can turn your whole idea. You think, oh, that's pretty. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, my God, what is she doing in that dress? Oh, it's like that. It's different.
So many of the women that you're most famous designing for, Cher and Mitzi Gaynor and Carol Burnett and Bette Midler, they're all really funny, in addition to being beautiful, glamorous, and standard
well,
talented.
There's just some that are funny, and then some that you wish they were funnier than they think they are.
Uh-huh.
There's that one too, always.
Okay, which one is that?
I'm not going to tell you. No, it's just sometimes they're just not funny enough. They can't do that little twist to make you laugh out loud. And they learn eventually. You know, Martha Ray I used to hate because she was such a pain to work with, but she was funny.
I mean, I was watching, there are a few clips of Judy Garland in the documentary.
That woman can be funny.
Yeah. And she has, you know, this is when she's in her 40s.
42 or 3
Yeah.
when we did that show. We only did one season.
And she's a really distinctive physical presence because she's so small.
5'11".
4'11".
4'11". I'm sorry. Yeah, 4'11". That's small.
A really small person.
Long legs, short body.
And she has this kind of like wildness to her where she's almost like careening around. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. You watched. It was interesting to see her working it in her own way. And they could show her a dance number once that she'd never seen before as a child, and she'd go right out and do it exactly right. But children are like that. They learn how to do things, and it's easy for them. Somehow they have that kind of brain that works. Mickey Rooney could do that. People like that, you know. And it doesn't mean they're going to turn out to be successful human beings, but sometimes they are.
Well, I would say Judy Garland was a mixed success at being a human being. She was certainly a show business success.
Oh, yeah. But they made her overworked her and you know, and made her go on diets and all the wrong things you do to a child, you know. It's terrible.
I want to ask you about a couple of your most famous designs.
Oh, good.
Are
they favorites or they're ones you want to nab me on?
Well, they're a mixed bag.
Okay.
Bob.
All right, go for it.
Okay. Well, first of all, some of the most ridiculous and delightful are some of the more ridiculous things that you put Elton John in. There's this moment in the documentary where there's this conversation about the time Elton John was dressed as Donald Duck.
Right.
And what seems to be your defense is, well, previously we had dressed him as Minnie Mouse.
Yeah. But I mean, he loved it. He had the best time when he was in costume.
Well, it's great. That's why he loved it. It's
and
freaking
he would start
great.
laughing at himself. And then, of course, Donald Duck, he couldn't do the pedals on the piano because he had his shoes are made out of flippers that you swim in.
Right.
And they're painted yellow. I mean, it was like impossible.
There's a lot of shots in the documentary of him in his skin tight sequel Elton John themed Dodgers uniform.
Right. That was one day in his life. And then later on he did it again, but you know.
So where does those things come from?
Well, it got so he was always wearing a costume.
Right.
When he did a concert. And sometimes the costume would be made in England because that's where he was, or he'd be in LA that's where he was. And I was usually there. I don't know. You just go for it. You just do the best. And I remember the Donald Duck costume was his PR agent said, why can't he just wear a uniform, Dodgers uniform? And I said, good idea. And we'll make it all sparkly and he'll love that. And he loved diamonds. He loved jewelry. He spent all his money on beautiful things like that and give it as gifts and keep it himself and look in the drawers. Isn't it beautiful? Everybody's different and they have their likes and dislikes.
Okay. Another one is this famous Cher outfit at the Academy Awards.
Yes.
This is when she had been in Silkwood. This was serious Cher.
She was down and dirty in most of those movies, and unsuccessful as a human being, not as an actress, but as a human being.
Right, character-wise.
And there was always something about her that was fascinating, whether you believed her who she was or whatever. There was just something about it that you couldn't help but be fascinated with her.
I mean, there's a picture of her mother in the documentary.
Yes.
Her mother, who was a model.
Gorgeous.
Her mother was breathtakingly good looking.
Yeah.
And looked like a model, the model that she was.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that picture of her, I thought, gosh, she looks a lot like Cher, but she could never look like Cher. Like the fact that Cher is so much more than just beautiful.
But Cher was so undone about the fact that she wasn't as beautiful as her mother or her blonde sister.
Right.
Because there were several different husbands and whatever mixed in there. So her sister looked quite blonde and very different. And Cher always thought she was unattractive. So many of these girls, not all of them, but so many of these girls that have just something about them that they don't like, never forget it in their lives.
I mean,
now Cher looked just, if you see a picture of her Armenian father, she smiles like he smiles. She looks like him, except he has a hairy chest, but he just, it's just kind of wild when you think about it and how unhappy as a child she was, because she never looked like the popular girls in her school, high school or wherever. And yet there was so much already. The minute I saw her when she was like, I don't know, 19 or 20, I went, wow, look at her. Look at that body. Look at what she can do. And she never worked that hard at looking amazing.
She's so arresting. Like that's a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like you could never walk down the street and not stop to look at Cher.
Yeah, I'm sure people were looking at her when she thought nobody was. But that happens when you're a kid and you don't look the way you want to look. Especially girls, I think.
One of the things that I think you said about Cher in the film is that Cher had the energy of holding back a little bit and having the audience come to her. It was like I can't remember the phrase you used, but it was like hey, check this out. Hey, get a load of this kind of vibe.
She was like that, though. And she was completely comfortable being her. Visually, she was just so comfortable with it. And for years, I kept saying, how did she learn to sing like that? How in the world could she learn to sing like that? And then I heard a record she made with her mother, and she and her mother were singing exactly alike. That voice was the same from both women. And then I heard somebody ask her, who taught you to sing? She said, my mother. It's just kind of wild because that's not a real voice. That's not a real lady voice. It's just amazing.
It's like a visitor from space, like Grace Jones or something.
Yeah, no, really. But she never thought of it that way.
A welcome one.
But she never thought of it that way. She was just the way she sang. And Sonny would kind of, coach her a little bit. And it would get kind of Southern or kind of a little black, maybe. There were just ways of singing, and she would throw it in once in a while. And some of those things stayed in over the years. But interesting how that works out.
The outfit that she wore at this Academy Awards when she was being serious Cher was huge boots, like giant black boots.
Yeah, they were over the knee, yeah.
Very little between waist and shoulders.
Right, very little.
And then...
But it was below her waist, actually. The part that sat on the pants or whatever, her leg things.
Yeah, leg things, I think. Yeah. Is that the technical term? You're the costume designer.
Yeah. Well, her pants, okay.
And then...
And a loincloth.
Yeah, and the grandest headdress that's ever existed on a head.
Well, you see, for how many years did she do that show? And every week she would be in some exotic outfit. It wasn't a real outfit, but yet it was. And she said, nobody's seen me look this exotic or this strange. To her, that was strange. But and in a long time, and I want to look like that, because she was pissed off she didn't get nominated. She was not happy. And of course, she got more attention than anybody ever has. for doing, a part that she didn't even like doing.
I mean, in a way, she's like not only the ultimate Bob Mackie clothing wearer because she has worked with you so extensively and so long.
But it happened right away. It wasn't something that developed over a time. It happened quickly.
It's like she is someone who so easily can wear something that is the 12 out of 10ist garment in history, make it look completely at home without losing any of its beauty or any of what makes it outrageous. You know what I mean?
You're
like
right. You're
all
right.
those things can sit on her at the same time.
You're absolutely right. I have a picture of her dressed from head to toe as Queen Elizabeth I.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. Who would think this funny little Armenian girl from the valley, but it works. She's amazing.
It must be a great feeling to know that you've had these few subjects in your life, like an Elton John or like Cher, where...
Well, Elton just said to me, would you make me costumes? I said, well, what kind of costumes would you like? Well, I like those things that Cher wears. And I'm thinking to myself, oh God, do we have a drag queen in the works here? No, just likes to dress up and have it be glittery and sparkly and drag on the ground across the stage, whatever it takes to make it work.
I mean, he's sort of like a mask. He's like the mask drag king. Like he enacts sort of insane versions of masculinity.
Kind of, yeah. Elton John is very honest about himself and what he likes and who he likes, and went through a lot of hell in the beginning, and got over it. Thank God.
Is your greatest pleasure to have somebody in front of you that you could execute your wildest idea with?
Well, that's always good to feel that you can do that. But I think that I could make that happen with almost anybody if they're a good performer to start with. But that's just sort of bragging about myself. But there's times when you just look at somebody and the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they just kind of will say something and they'll get a laugh and you go, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, it's great when that happens.
Your most famous designs are often the biggest and most ridiculous, but what are just because it's memorable, but what are the designs what is a design that you've created that you're really proud of?
I don't even know at this point. I don't really know what I've done so many that you just do it and you say, well, that works. Oh, thank God, we got a laugh. Well, and then you go on to the next thing and hope that it's better. But I don't have that. There isn't that particular one. The one that was the most startling was Cher on the cover of Time magazine in her semi-see-through dress. At the time, it was like outrageous because Time magazine had political stars and leaders of different countries and all these things on the cover. And all of a sudden, there she was, our little girl, And well, how did that happen? It's just kind of like, wow, okay. And she was that important at that time. Any girl in this country that had long black hair and a big nose said, everybody tells me I look just like Cher. And you go, oh, honey, no, it's a long way, but go ahead.
Now that you're in your 80s, do you think you're better at this than you used to be?
No, I don't think I'm better at it. I don't think I'm better. I think I'd be about the same. I think. I might be wrong about that.
Have you learned things?
I've learned things. Yeah, you learn things. You learn what's flattering, what will look great on them and what will not look great on them. There's always that too, especially if they're a glamour girl of sorts. And some people just can't pull it off the same way.
Well, Bob, I'm so grateful for your time. It's so fun to get to talk to you about your incredible work.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I never mentioned Marilyn Monroe. I think I could have been a good Marilyn Monroe designer, but I never got really. I worked on a movie that she didn't finish, but I was just the sketch artist. And I did draw the sketch for the birthday song to the president.
Okay, tell me, before we go, we have to wrap, Bob.
Okay.
But I should make you tell me about this.
There's no. I went in one day and Jean-Louis said, "I have the sketch I want you to do for Marilyn." I said, "Well, I thought she got fired from that movie." He said, "Oh, she did, but we need this dress," and he told me what it is exactly, and I drew it. And in about an hour, I was finished, and I said, "Do you need me for anything else?" He says, "No, we don't have anything right now," and I went home.
Did you see the video of her doing it then?
I on TV. Yeah. Amazing. When that light hits that woman with all these hand-sewn diamonds all over her dress, and she wanted to wear things like that. Fox wouldn't let her wear anything that see-through-y or whatever the word would be because of the calendar situation. And they were afraid that the public would not want to see her in anything. So they wouldn't, every time any movie, it was very decent. It might be glamorous and sexy, but at the same time, nothing was ever hanging out or showing or anything like that.
Did you know what effect it was having when you saw it on screen?
Well, in Madison Square Garden, thousands of people. And the men were in suits and the ladies were like in cocktail dresses, black cocktail dresses and whatever. And pictures of her I had later on. I saw these pictures from cocktail parties in somebody's apartment. And there she's walking around, sort of nudish. And all these people were just these regular people from Washington. It was just the craziest thing.
Just a delegate from Delaware is there.
It's really crazy when you think about it. And she's just being friendly to everybody, and it's just nice.
Well, Bob, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. I hope I didn't go too long.
Not in the slightest.